I love the way that song ended by saying no more turning away. Because I think there is something that's in us that we keep turning away from. There's a desire to express in a unique way, and we shy away from that. So I'm going to share an experience I had this week. As many of you know, I am a presence within the Frisco Chamber of Commerce. I'm now a presence in the Plano Chamber of Commerce. I do that because I want to be in the world so that the world understands there is this thing we call Agape. So on Thursday mornings at the Frisco Chamber, you have 30 seconds. You have 90 people, and you have your 30 seconds, and you get to give your spiel. It's like your pitch. Well, we have a moderator, and this particular Thursday, this moderator decided to start off the theme, and he talked about big butts. Now, I'm not talking about the word butt. I'm talking about this butt. And so everyone started following the theme in their little pitch, what's going on. And we were about 90% through. So I'm one of the last 5 to 6 people that are going to speak. And I got up and I said, good morning, I'm Reverend Lee Wolak, and I'm from the Agape Center for Spiritual Living, where we teach you how to better self-love. And I want you to know that no matter what size your butt is, you come to Agape and we will teach you how to love it. And then I proceeded to say this. I looked at him, I paused, and I looked and I said, what I've come to understand, that the greatest thing that keeps us out of love is judging. So whether we judge our butt, or we judge our lives, or we judge another, we are not in alignment with the divine. I said, when we judge, we cannot be love, and we are not love. We are not Christ-like, we are not Buddha-like. In that moment we judge, we are atheists. And I sat down. And the room was just like this. Dead quiet. Not a word was being said, because people don't want to hear that. People want to say, well, I'm this, I'm that, when we're not acting in alignment. You see, being that Christ-like is a moment. Now, it doesn't end there. People are coming up. Some people are coming up and they're talking about, whoa, that was cool. I never thought of it that way. Whoa, you've got big kahunas. Whoa, you said that in this group. Whoa, and all this. And then an evangelical minister that's a part of the group walked up to me and said, I disagree with most everything you just said. I said, really? I find that interesting. He says, yes, to self-love is to deny God. We're only supposed to love God. And I looked at him and I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that God is infinite? He said, yes. Do you believe God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient? And he said, yes. I said, so let me get this real clear. You understand that the meaning of infinite means the seen, the unseen, the known, the unknowable. There is nothing not included in the infinite. And in that idea, there's all God, which means you, I, and everyone are created out of that, which is God. We are the very individualization and breath of God. That's what it means to be a child of God. And he says, no, you only love God. You loving yourself, you are a narcissist. And I said, no, I am a child of God, and I will love me with my heart and my soul, and that is what I teach, because what you are teaching is no longer what the master taught. And I walk away. You see, it's not about debating, because when you argue, you've heard me say this. If you're new for the first time, you'll hear it for the first time. But when we argue, we're only trying to convince ourselves. But something has happened within me in the last 2 months where I've said, I choose not to play small anymore. I choose to speak up for what I believe. I choose to be authentic. Because listen to why I want to be authentic. If I'm not authentic, then I'm not self-loving. The second I'm speaking and subordinating myself to another's values, I cannot be self-loving. And that's what we're taught. From the moment we're born to subject ourselves to the values of our parents, to our families and that. Well, no, our families are there to give us a safe environment so that we can grow and become our unique individualization, our unique values. That's what we were meant. That's why we're constantly seeking this thing called freedom. So I was teaching a values workshop yesterday to a group of practitioners. And it was more than a values workshop. We got into deep meditation. We got into prayer work. We got into affirmation. We got into the basic principles of what we teach here. But the real key about it is you got to know what you value. And so if I value self-actualization as my top value, that means the connection with the infinite power and presence, and of being in that power and presence, everything I think, do, and say has to line up for that. If I value myself as a teacher and a speaker, everything I speak and teach has to line up with that. If I'm an avid learner, everything I'm learning is about supporting that, either challenging it or finding me further support, because you've got to have both. Does that make sense? You've got to have challenge and you've got to have support. Because if you're not challenged, then it's milquetoast. You don't believe. Does that make sense? Because believing means that you're willing to stand in the fire, profess the belief, but be willing and open to receive something new. You see, there's always going to be more insights, because we're not about growing, we're about becoming more aware, because right now we're perfect. We are a spirit expressing in physical form, and we are expressing to the degree of the awareness that we have with ourselves. And when we increase that awareness, we express at a higher level, but rest assured there will always be a level above that. Does that make sense? So what I want to do is experience. Here's what experience is. We're meant to take experience in. We're made to experience it with our senses and all of that. Then we're supposed to let it go. And when we take it in, experience it, and let it go, then we live in the now. And when we live in the now, there's eternal energy. It's when we're not living in the now that we get tired. We don't feel rejuvenated. I'm bored in that. You see, that means we're focusing on the past. We're focusing on the future. We're not fully present now in alignment with our values, because when you are aligned in your values, you go all day long. You don't need any motivation, inspiration. You're just going because you are tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to the very power and breath that you know that you are, that you've created, and you've dedicated your well-being and your life to. Is that a good one? I don't know how I got that out without spitting and covering Angelo. But the more I understand is that we're going to always have experiences. And when we get those experiences, no matter what side of the coin they may be on, embody them, be present in them, and when they're done, let them go. You see, what that does is you've released blockage. Because all the blockage that we have in our lives right now are emotions that we've stored because of past events that we believe are pivotal in our lives, instead of taking that event, getting what we want out of it, and releasing it. This goes for any type of event that you can possibly imagine. Whether your mother spanked you, your father spanked you, whether you were raped, whether you had death in your family at an early age, whether you were raised in poverty, whether you were raised rich, whether you were raised black, white, gay, it doesn't matter. You are the divine individualized. That's what we embrace. We are the divine individualized. And when we embrace that, we realize that we all have the same power to become more aware, to create into the world. And then here's the thing. It's not just breathing it in and thinking it. There is work in creating this awareness. This is where people in New Thought tend to fall off the wagon. They get into this na-na-na land, sha-na-na land, whatever it is, and they don't do the work. So let me share with you what I believe the work is. The work I believe is meditation. And we found that to be so indicative yesterday when we had 15 practitioners and ministers together and we were doing the new Agape meditation that I created. In that moment, when you know there is but one power, one presence, and you are it, and you are the observer of your life. You are not your body, you are not your mind, but you are that which is greater than the mind and the body, but you have a mind and the body. And from that state of being there, you're able to go into a state of eternal gratitude because you understand that everything that's happening to you is about guiding and directing you, whether it's on this side or this side. It's telling you, are you on course or are you off course? And then able to see that, you're able to go out and know that I see the balance and perfection of all life. Because if you are the supreme observer, I mean the infinite, and you were to look down, and it doesn't do that, okay? You know you're in balance. It has to be in balance, because if it wasn't in balance, it would self-destruct. Do you see that? So balance is in everything. It doesn't matter if there's a relationship like Gene and I have a relationship. Many of you see the high aspects of the relationship. There are other aspects of the relationship that balance it out. If you look at the United States as a country, all the good we do, we've done as many horrific things as good as we've done. All the horrific things we did, think of the people around, think of Adolf Hitler. All the horrific things he did, there was a lot of good that came from Adolf Hitler. This is true about anyone who has ever walked the planet. There is always balance. What we have come to do is we have come to expect a one-sided view of life. And this is why there are more people in states of anxiety, in states of depression, in states of bipolar. There are more people with addictions because they believe that they can be happy all the time. It is impossible to be happy. Happy is an event that occurs that tells us that we're on the way. But to be on the way, we've got to have both sides of it to guide us back to the path that we choose. So you're going to have happy and you're going to have sad. And when you embrace both of them and you see both of them, you are walking the line of the divine in that moment. And it is only a moment, because in our humanness, we are meant to move to one side. And then we're meant to come back and we're meant to move to the other. But most people, when they get into this idea of delusion, which leads to the mental problems that we're experiencing, they stay on one side and they hope to be on one side, and that's an impossibility. The one thing I want to say is, here's the idea when I hear the word worship. When I hear the word worship, what worship means to me is the study and the experience of the divine, or the study and the experience of the infinite, the study and the experience of a greater lead than my mind and my body. It's not about getting down on my knees and praying to something. Does that make sense? I do not believe in that, because there's nothing I need to pray to. Because if I am the individualization, I am simply becoming aware of the greaterness in me, which is the same greaterness in you. So if I pray with you, together we're forming a connection where we're both in that moment realizing the infinite within each of us. And in awareness, we're putting into the very mind that creates an intention, a command, an expectation, and it always says yes. A great practitioner friend of Gina and mine who was there yesterday, Bert. You got to love the Bert. The Bert is really this. He says, either this stuff works or it's bull crap. I saw the little girl there. That's why I changed the word. It's either bull crap. And what I've come to understand when people ask me, well, why do you teach this? I said, because it works in my life. It works in the lives of the people that I'm teaching it with, that have embodied it and are doing it. And I could get a lot of people to stand up right now and demonstrate and give you testimonial after testimonial how this works. But I want to say this. I'm not judging other religions. I'm saying at this moment of time, every religion is the perfect path for each person in it. So I'm not saying we're right and they're wrong. I'm saying we're one way to experience the divine. Here's what I know about prayer. Prayer works for us. Prayer works for a Muslim, a Catholic, a Jew, a Pentecostal, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Zoroastrian. I don't care who it is. If there is belief, it works for an atheist. Because when you build a belief and you build in a conviction, the law doesn't say, well, that's a Christian. They have belief and conviction. I'll give them that prayer. Oh, that's a Buddhist? Nah, I don't think so. The law is like a scientific law. It says, when you believe with conviction, that experience becomes who you are. So building belief and conviction is why we do spiritual practice. That's why we meditate. That's why we do spiritual mind treatment, which we call prayer. That's why we do affirmations. That's why we do gratitude. That's why we visualize. That's why we vision. That's why we do journaling. That's why we do, sometimes other centers do ritual. I'm not a big ritual guy. Can you tell? I'm just a black and white type of minister. I say, this is what works, let's do that. This is what works, then do that. I don't want to fuzz the issue. Does that make sense? Because sometimes when we fuzz the issue, we start, well, if I have this crystal, and if I marry, wait, I'm a Cancer. If I marry a Scorpio, I'll have the best sex life in the world. Because that's what the signs say. I didn't marry a Scorpio. I married a Pisces. I want to tell you the signs are wrong. I got a grin out of you, Jan. What I'm saying to you is my wish, my knowing for you is that you take a look within and see what is calling from within that desires to be expressed. What is calling to be expressed? I would invite you now to start taking a step toward expressing it. Because here's what I know about self-love. Until we are authentic, we're not loving. Until we believe that we are perfect as we are, and we walk that, we live that, we breathe that, we speak that, we're not self-loving. And if we cannot love ourselves, how can anyone else love us? You see, I remember being taught, growing up as a Catholic, this, Lord, I am not worthy, but say the word and my soul shall be healed. Those are man-made words in the belief of an anthropomorphic God, a God made in the image of humans, and God cannot be made in the image of humans. How could a human entity or a human expression create a cosmos that is infinite with trillions of galaxies? It's impossible. There's no such thing. We got to realize that the image of man was made for the mind of a human that was so much less than the mind that we've come to grasp. We still can't grasp the idea of the infinite, but we grasp it more now than we ever have. So my challenge to you is to explore that within you that wants to see more, that wants to feel more, that wants to be more, that wants to self-love. And know that I, the practitioners, and the community of Agape are here to support you and to love you on your sacred journey. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.